start developing new markets, not when things go bad.
But I still thought that it's a good idea to go and ask the wholesalers that why do they buy, and it actually turned out that results were quite surprising. So
First of all, you kind of sell your country, or you tell them where you come from, then that is acceptable as an idea for the potential buyer to buy from Estonia.
Welcome to Playbook for Sales and Founders, where unknown heroes share how they entered new markets.
Learn practical advice from those just 2 steps ahead of you. Our next unknown hero is...
welcome to the show. It's great to have you all here today. I have an awesome unknown hero, Birgit Linnamäe, and I invited her today to talk about sales in physical products and IT services. And she has experience on selling processed timber, standardized as much as you can, nothing, no innovation, zero. And still you have to differentiate yourself as a company. And the other end, you have fabricated houses, very innovative approach. She figured out a way how to license these so wide range of physical products and metalworks companies. She has also helped on going to new markets. So Birgit, great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Colin, for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm really, really glad that this is taking place now.
Actually, we go back quite a long time. I was a supervisor of your thesis at the University of Tartu, and this is where we first met. And I like to tell the stories that I learned a lot from this experience, like lean startup methodology and asking customers that why do they buy. And although you were not, at that time, you were working for a plain timber, a processed timber company who does timber for interior, exterior finishings. So it was nothing like startups, but I still thought that it's a good idea to go and ask the wholesalers that why do they buy timber from this teeny tiny Estonian company instead of anybody else in the market. And you as a good student, you thought that I've been in this business for ages, so why the hell should I go and ask from the wholesalers that the price is the only thing, that this is like a wholesale business, price is everything, why should I ask? And
Yeah,
it actually turned out that results were quite surprising. So what did you find out when you asked these wholesalers, why do they buy?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, this must have been nearly 20 years ago, or
Almost,
between 15 and 20 years ago, because I know I've been thinking about it now as I do my PhD studies, and I'm researching competitiveness from a totally different angle. But we'll come to that kind of. But yeah, so when you said to me as a CEO of a timber processing or planing mill, go out there and ask why your British customers or why your German customers, why they buy, what is the criterion that's important to them, then yeah, so I asked very, very simple questions. So what do you appreciate? What's important to you? How did we start collaborating? Why did you listen to me, or why did you hear out the product offering? You know, I thought I knew all the answers, but in the end, what happened is that I didn't. And that was such a surprise to you as well. And it's a really interesting story. So I remember this British timber yard, and well, I thought that the main criterion for the sales was the price. Then to our both surprise, it was actually the suggestion of the buyer to even maybe increase the price, because what was actually important to them was the timely delivery and the service and everything that goes around the smaller supplies of a timber mill. And, you know, Estonia is usually not the producer of large scale, massive volumes, especially when we talk about SME size companies. And that was also the case with that planing mill. So what was really, really important to the client was actually the mix and match, kind of the mashup of the different product positions in the lorry, and the speed of service and the pleasantness of the service. So it was so much more about the service, and I think my entire career ever since has been very much influenced by the master's research. I got an executive cum laude. I graduated actually with honors, if you recall. So it was a really good thesis, but it was not only theoretical, it was really practical as well. So I've been influenced about it, and I think many small, medium-sized companies tend to be in that side of the business where they have this value added to offer to the client. So not just the price, not just the features of the product, but rather the service, the additional something that can be done, the tweaks, the development, the growth together with the client. So it's a lot about the social skills and actually building a relationship. So we're still human beings. Yeah,
absolutely. And if I remember correctly, that the assumption was that like your company is offering this low price, and it's like a wholesaler. Their KPI is like how cheap they can buy quality standard stuff, and they get bonuses if they can get the prices cheaper. But actually what happens if you look at the bigger picture, what is their role of a wholesaler is to send out the full batches of like containers or lorries, and you need the mix of timber products on it. And what happened was that often they had a problem that 95% of the lorry was full and everything was there, and the 5% was missing. You can't send it out because 5% is missing. And this is where your company came in, that, hey guys, we can do it in 2 weeks. And that was like the value. And why this guy in UK was saying that actually you charge too little, that at the end of the process where I have 5% missing out of the whole package, I'm willing to pay like double in order to get this out of the door, because I lose money every day I'm delaying sending this batch out or this lorry out. So like understanding the pains of the customers and which role can you play in it, especially if your product is standardized, that you can't do anything novel about it. Then this firefighter who can come in and save on the last minute bigger orders and so forth, fix somebody else's mistakes and so forth, that this has a lot of value, but it means that your internal processes have to be super good, because otherwise it's you bring the fire into your place instead of extinguishing it at customer site.
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, well, we need to talk about that more. This comes down to the business processes, which I think is one of the key elements is in the success of getting into business with someone or building up a business relationship, a supply relationship, or being a member in the value chain. So it's all about business processes and how you manage to organize the physical processes, the logistics, the sourcing, the purchasing, the quality control, but also the communication and the interpersonal matters, the social aspect and the flow of information. How do you manage to inform the clients or communicate between the different departments in your organization, to make sure that if your goods are ready, they are not standing in the corner of the warehouse and waiting for the client to come and pick it up because there has been a misunderstanding in the communication. So is the client going to pick it up, or am I going to deliver? I think it's the business processes and the communication, they really need to be foolproof in order to digitization planning tools, they massively help. Obviously 15 years ago it was still a bit of a different situation. So that's interesting.
Going back to this period, that one thing I learned from you also is you can't distinguish your product. You have to make it very easy for a customer to buy from you. And I remember that you used some tricks regarding like remembering birthdays and stuff, and also calling at the appropriate time and making it easy. So could you go over what were the tricks and tips what you used there to make it easy for buy from you and make it as a pleasant process compared to all the other guys who were selling to the wholesalers?
Yeah, sure. Well, this reminds me actually a book that I read a couple of years ago, which is called Demand Side Sales. So it's all about not explaining all the technical features or the physical capabilities, but understanding the client's situation and the client's needs. So I'm a really people's person. I really want to feel and sense and understand the people, which is why I always go and meet the people before I start dealing with them, or at least very early in a relationship, I make sure to understand the chemistry. I really liked when people wanted to tell me about their families and their kids and their dogs, and also when writing emails.
How do you ask about it? Like you go to a new guy in UK, wholesaler, you meet them first time and then ask how many kids you have, or how does that happen?
Who's your wife?
Who's your wife?
Yeah, you have to be careful with that. But usually people, they make friends first. And we said that if there's a product where you don't really distinguish between if it's a commodity, I'm not talking about, government tenders and there, obviously there are different types of sales as well, but we are primarily talking about small and medium-sized company sales. And in these situations, usually, as I said also earlier, first of all, you kind of sell your country, or you tell them where you come from, and that is acceptable as an idea for the potential buyer to buy from Estonia in our case, or whether to buy from Sweden or Germany if you're...
That's very interesting, unusual. I haven't heard that before. But so you sold the country first. Estonia is a tiny country, and you're selling timber, like processed timber. So you can't tell, in my mind, you can't tell the story of we are IT world of like everything. We have all these startups, and I'm selling timber. And Finland is like big timber country that, or Sweden. That how do you say that we are a better place compared to Sweden or Finland?
Well, you have to understand the tricks, and there is no one universal trick. So there's every single company and every single situation, every single person has their own particular trick to kind of find their own thing. So what I used at that time is the name of the company, the planing mill, is called Finlade, and the name of the company reminds of Finland, which is a really famous timber country. So even though I pronounce it very clearly the name of the company, but still people kind of had an association with the first part of the word, which is Finn. Finland is very, very famous. It's as if you're calling from Germany about cars. It's pretty much the same thing. But the other thing is that you have to be kind of easy to communicate with. It needs to be enjoyable. And I think it's very, very difficult. Even Warren Buffett, says that you don't build a long-term business if you don't talk to your people, if you don't take them into consideration, and if you don't like what you do, and if your clients don't like what you do. Psychological studies prove that there are much better results achieved when people enjoy what they're doing. I mean, it's very, very interesting. It's curiosity. First of all, we're all human beings and we are curious, whether you're scrolling on Instagram or somewhere else. The curiosity, it feeds our brain. But then the social part of curiosity is much more satisfying because social interaction is satisfying. And then when you find out about the clients, when you find out about their personality, what their education has been, and there's some sort of a common ground. Oh, I'm interested in that. You're interested in that. And then people tell about their life automatically. It definitely is not a case that you're intruding in their lives, or what did you have for breakfast? But speaking of food, I think that's also being mindful as to what time you ring people. Maybe it's not a good idea to talk about a claim on a Friday afternoon. So it probably might not make sense to ring people up at 12 noon because they're hungry. They're probably rushing and trying to finish up a couple of things to get to their lunch. And in that sense, I really like what I learned in Korea. If you ring them up around lunchtime, then they ask, oh, have you had lunch yet? Miss Birgit, have you had lunch yet? And if you say, oh, you haven't had lunch, they discuss with you, so what are you going to have for lunch? And they'll ring you in the afternoon. And there are these psychological studies as well that prove cases in the US where they say the judges actually, when they're hungry, they make worse decisions or more damaging decisions to the people in the court before having lunch versus similar cases after they've eaten. If I'm talking to people in Birmingham or people in Frankfurt or I don't know in Poland, then it makes sense, finding out what's happening there, kind of what's the mindset. I think 10, 15 years ago, I think the mindset still played a weaker role maybe in international relationships, but over the last 15, 20 years, it has only been so much drastically more becoming an influential aspect, and ultimately people do what they want to do, and they're not going to be in a business situation where they don't want to be in. Talking about SMEs, like small, medium-sized companies. I mean,
okay. So to sum it up, that in your work that you start a relationship with physical presence, that this gives an edge. Then you find out or figure out where's the best time in a day to call. And I remember that you said that for some guys you called at their time, like 8:15, when they just arrived to the office. They have had their coffee. They haven't swamped or they haven't been swamped with all the emails and everything. And then you call and they have a time to discuss with you. And so like finding these spots and this lunch thing, I think is really important. That when do people have a better mood in the day, and when you are not considered as extension of a bad day.
Like this morning, for example, I was ringing up a German manufacturer of wooden playgrounds, like the structural components are wooden. And they actually approached me as a consultant. They read about one of my articles in the newspapers, and so they wrote me an email and asked if they can use my services, my help, to help source the raw materials from a better value chain. But then I checked out their opening times, and I realized they work from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And so I rang them up today, which was 7:25 German time, and they were, nice and fresh and enthusiastic, and it works really well. That's just another confirmation.
Awesome. So let's move to the other end, the Kodas fabricated houses, like very innovative approach. You fabricate the house in a factory, and how did it end up that you were able to figure out the business model where you could license this fabrication?
Yeah, so, the housing industry in general is quite complicated, and it has also changed over. Our needs have changed over the last 10, 20 years, as people continue to move to cities. There's like 1 million people in the world who move to cities every week. And therefore we need more houses more quickly in cities. And most of our listeners probably have heard and read about the housing shortages in different countries, different cities. So the prefabricated modular house industry is one way to resolve the housing crisis. Obviously, the producers don't do it alone. It's quite a complex collaboration with the local governments and property investors. So actually, the product that is sold is housing units. So total entire rooms are shipped on a truckload or on a vessel and then delivered volumetrically, fully finished, and just unloaded and craned to place. So that's the business model. The company Kodasema started off with houses made out of concrete, and concrete obviously is quite is heavy for transporting. So we were successful to change the business model in the sense of keeping the architecture, which skyrocketed in fame and gained a lot of traction in the media with awards, in architectural fairs, in design magazines. It was really, really genius design from an aesthetical point of view and also from an engineering point of view. There is two types of design work successfully together. So we changed the material, we kept the architecture, and started making the houses out of wood, which is sustainable, which absorbs CO2. So that automatically corresponds to the need, what the market needs. But nevertheless, we realized that the minimalist, plastic, well-designed intellectual property that the company had been investing into and really big amounts of money over it. It didn't make sense from a business model perspective to be delivering all the materials across halfway across the world to the US or to Australia. And because of the volumetric nature of the product and the bulkiness, we arrived to an understanding that the value of the product was actually the intellectual property, the hundreds and thousands of drawings. And that was then the value in the company. And while we were kind of talking to different counterparts on the market, and because you place your product and you understand kind of where you stand in the in the value chain only when you talk to people. The key word or the name of the game, so to say, is actually feedback. And what I mean by feedback is that I think selling modular houses or selling intellectual property is more like being a psychologist, like being open and being present and with full focus understanding in the situations. What is the feedback? What can work and what can't? I actually started to call the method of this business model innovation at Kodasema the CALM method. So where the C stands for create. So creating all the contacts, understanding the feedback. Then the A in the CALM method is for a sort, going through evaluating what the contacts have been created and what works, leaving aside maybe the ones that are not giving the right feedback. Then the L in the CALM method stands for learning, getting out of this feedback and understanding into which direction it makes sense going, talking to the different parties, the shareholders of the company, the different interested parties, the clients, the employees, the technical engineers, the technical capabilities. It's a teamwork. You never do that alone. And then the M in the CALM method stands for multiply. So if you've created, you've assorted, you've learned, and you've understood what works, then you go on and multiply. So what we did at Kodasema is that we found a partner in the US for licensing the intellectual property. And
was it your idea? Was it their idea that, hey, can you license it? Or you just listened to them, but but sending this stuff to the US is too heavy, too costly, that at the same time there's capability to produce this stuff at the site. So how did you offered them, or they were asking that, hey, can we produce it ourselves? Or
I think it was a result of a team of different a result of different ideas being put together and of diverse people. The people that we were having conversations with came from construction technology side, from material science side, and from the financing world and business model innovation side, and from the commercial side with capabilities and access to the market. And then it was also from our end, the shareholder with massive banking and financial industry experience, and the sustainability obviously was
from both sides. You had a mindset of looking at as a financial point of view, or haven't seen different business models that you can license stuff. You have IP has a value and so forth. But both sides had that mindset. This allowed this deal to be happening. That they looked at it, and licensing sounds like a nice way how to solve the problem of sending bulk objects over the ocean.
Yes, and perhaps another element was important is that the time or the era where we live, and when industrial factories were built 10, 15, 20 years ago, then the only way of scaling was installing more machinery and becoming more efficient. Whereas scaling in contemporary world is different. You scale with a business model and in different layers and into different directions. So a company can be selling with one business model in one area and then using a different business model in a different area. And I think it's the licensing intellectual property is also very typical in the automotive industry. And I think we copied really a lot from the automotive industry when it comes to the product design, when it comes to the manufacturing, and when it also comes to sales. We know the automotive industry uses the licensing of sales.
Usually people are afraid that if I license my IP to another manufacturer on a continent, they will steal everything and start to copy it. And it's China is a famous bad example that they copy everything. That as soon as they figure out that you make some money, then it's worth copying. Was your case licensing this IP, which was the main value, and all the drawings and stuff to a US company?
Yes. So there's always a risk. There's always a risk, and I don't think business is done between people and good quality contracts are very, very important. But I think what I learned also from my colleagues and from the main shareholder in that company is that you have to trust somewhere, even though you've been maybe deceived 100 times in the past, but one should leave the past behind and still take every new situation with a blank sheet and be open to evaluate the perspective from a neutral mindset perspective. So it does help having good lawyers, and especially in the US, litigation is a big part of the industry or the entrepreneurial world. So and the same applies maybe also to Australia. So we ended up licensing the intellectual property to the US as well as to Australia. So the contracts need to be there. They need to be good, and you need to understand how to get into the contract as well as how to get out of the contracts. And that's another thing that I've learned from working with these lawyers. It's like getting into a marriage, how to get into it and how to get out of it. You know, it's easy to plan things when everything goes well, but then if things don't go according to the plan, then changes need to be made, and changes are made, and that's a natural part of life. Yeah.
Okay, so you licensed your IP to the US. Then what happened? I assume it wasn't like, oh, we can lay back. Money is coming to our bank account. Our US partner is doing everything, producing, selling, everything. We just lay back and enjoy the life. But I assume that was not what happened.
Enjoying Playbook for Sales and Founders? Follow us on LinkedIn and join our exclusive Slack community to connect with founders and sales pros for tips and updates.
Things always take time, and things, especially if you're developing a new business model or a new business direction, then things take even more time, and things just take an awful lot of time, and that's what happened. And the partnership that we initially set up didn't work out the way we expected. So there was a new model, and we identified new partners to work with that also brought us kind of to the next level or to the next step. So it's ultimately the L part of the CALM method. So as you evolve or as you work, and we really worked hard. We worked so hard. We had an excellent team, and you can only do that together with a team and very, very good sets of understanding and human relationships. So I think that's really, really important, to be appreciating the team. And then we learned, and things didn't work out, and then we got in and we got out, and we got in and we got out.
So at the end of the day, did you figure out how to sell with license in US market, or you couldn't crack the code?
So as I moved on from the company a while ago, we started manufacturing the first unit still from Estonia, even though one of the units is ready in the US, but it wasn't completed because we understood that the engineering part of it was much more complicated than we anticipated. And that's
so you couldn't transfer all the know-how, that some of the stuff turned out to be very difficult to transfer. They couldn't do it the way you are doing it here in Estonia.
It was primarily, I think, what we tried to do is we tried to develop too many things at the same time. So we were rocking the boat too much. We wanted to change the material, and we wanted to adopt the local norms, but doing that two things at the same time. So everything ended into a situation where everything was a variable, and it's. I think that's also something to learn in engineering or product development, where you're doing the minimum viable product. And when you're launching a new thing, where I was talking the other day to a guy in home automation and, energy saving hardware and software, a startup company. And they also said that experience that you have to somewhere decide where your product is market fit or market ready. You have to go out there and offer it, and again learn and become better. But you need to go out there quite as quickly as possible to start learning and to start proving the product and to start gaining more feedback. So otherwise, product development is always very, very costly, and engineering is costly because times time goes by and people need to be paid and materials, and it's complicated. So I think it's having a close contact with the market and is very, very important. And also having the entire team in a similar mindset is also very, very important to be working with a similar time scale, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how did it go with Australia? Was this a better market for licensing?
Yeah, well, Australia, then the licensing relationship was, in that sense, was much easier because there the product development only involved adjusting the product to the local construction code or building norms, but the materials were not entirely changed. So it was still the same timber frame house. So in that sense, the licensing collaboration with Australia is much more successful because actual units were ready, even though it took longer. And then the pandemic hit, and I think that was a remarkable achievement that we hadn't actually met the Australian partners, but we managed to virtually establish such a great connection that everybody felt so comfortable getting into the relationship, and they were working so hard in getting these units built and showed, and we had a really great event where the Estonian embassy attended, and it was such a hard work. And I really admire the team in Australia, but also the team here in Estonia that was supporting, giving figures and facts about how our production was set up, and we. What was also easier is that. We decided to or agreed to send components from Estonia as much as we could. So it was much less engineering for the initial units, and that's probably one of the key learnings to not to over-engineer, to take things in smaller steps. I think, and so, the feedback, yeah.
So build the trust, simplify the difficulty. That if you can't do the whole thing, try to simplify it as much as you can, that you can move faster, and learn in the process, that expect that nothing goes as you plan. And even if you take that very conservative, that it takes a year, it probably takes 2 or 3 years. So this is expected that you should still aim for a year, but don't be surprised that it's going to take you 3 years to get something working in another country. But
the important element is work closely with your shareholders, with the interested parties. I mean, you really need to have shareholders backing. You can't do it alone. I mean, you also need to have your team's backing, but investment is key. So I was very grateful for having a very understanding shareholder, and he was supportive all along. And I think that was a great asset.
What you're doing is that you're consulting companies in manufacturing and also IT services about going to new export markets. How to open up new markets with IT services, which are not so differentiated. What do you do? How do you show the value, how to open up the new markets?
I was teaching guest lectures at Estonian Business School to international master students, and then the rector and the management of the university and the students, they found it really contemporary, and especially after the pandemic, with the war and the high energy prices and geopolitical different circumstances, companies need to change. So the companies have new challenges of maintaining competitiveness and finding new markets, especially because there have been major disruptions. So I started my PhD in value chains, and the biggest challenge is for companies to understand how to remain in existing value chains or how to enter into new value chains, because the business models have changed, and somehow what has worked till date no longer works. I signed up for my PhD, and I'm now, by the end of this year, it will be halfway through. And I research the same questions that you asked now with the IT firms going to the international markets. I research that for science, but I also work with a multitude of companies, understanding their strategic capabilities and strategic possibilities of entering these value chains, especially with firms here in Estonia entering the value chains in Germany, for example, but also German companies, for example, entering the value chains then in Estonia. And I talk about value chains and not supply chains because as the contemporary world has become so much more complex, and it's not just about the supply relationship, it has become so much more complicated. And companies need to change also much more quickly. So decisions are made much more quickly, and disruptions happen much more quickly. So it's not just the sourcing, the quality, the purchasing, the selling, the delivery, the customer care, but it's so much more integrating also new competences or integrating sustainability aspects or corporate social responsibility and finding alternatives or delivering superior added value. So it's not just competing against the price. And when you ask about the IT companies, what I help the companies do is find out their unique value offering or their unique situation, their unique.
How do you do that?
Yeah, how do I do that? Oh, that's an ABC. It's finding out what they do, what they can offer, what they are good at, what they have already experienced, and
good at is their opinion or their customer's opinion, or how do you determine that they say, oh, we do a quality code that we are super good in quality? How do you say that? Okay, is it true or not, or how do you dig deeper?
The digging deeper is having a combination of fact-based of data and then the human, the social aspect, like understanding how their team works, how the business processes work, how decisions are made, who makes decisions, what has worked, which sectors have worked, which clients have worked, small clients, big clients, this city, that city, north, south, east, west.
So you are looking for success cases that show me customers who have been super happy about what you were able to deliver, and then understanding why were you able to deliver this to that customer. Is this correct?
That's one thing, and the other thing is also I also look at the other side, like what has not worked, taking a zoom in and a zoom out picture. I just I start talking to people who I know. And I really have a huge network, and whether that is working with an IT services company or an engineering services company, or that's furniture manufacturing or CNC metalworking component manufacturer, or it's not so much about what the industry is, but rather what the approach is. And I probably have about four different key methods how to approach the market. So the one thing is institutions and alliances, and I think collaborations in institutions and alliances are not used enough. And what I mean by institutions and alliances are actually formal and informal networks. Like if you go and eat somewhere in Germany, curry sausages, then that's maybe an informal network, but still you meet the right people and meeting the people and talking to them and having some feedback. And people are interested in cognitively like higher level conversations that satisfy their curiosity. And then ultimately in these networks, whether formal networks like trade promotion organizations or embassies, there are these unofficial or softer networks. I have a cousin in Germany. So I ask her sometimes, oh, do you know people there or in a different place? It's like a web and going through the people who you know and the people who recommend you to someone else, and then having these conversations. And if it's interesting and if there is value added, then people are happy to talk back and make recommendations. And if you have a recommendation, it's easier already to gain contact in the new business. Also in trade shows, there are different ways of going, finding, for example, with a CNC component manufacturing company, what would be the first question if you go to a big equipment manufacturing show? It's like, hey, why don't you buy my CNC stuff? And it's kind of difficult. It takes time to then get into the conversation. So there, for example, we realized that the key question was, do you manufacture all your components that you need yourself, or do you work with subcontractors?
Suppliers, subcontracts, yeah.
I dive in there with a zoom in and zoom out view, and as an outsider, as an unbiased, hopefully unbiased consultant or strategist, I have a free and side view on their business, and I probably come to different suggestions that people who are dealing with their own company every day don't think of. That's the one thing. But then another thing is that what works more successfully is in building bridges is having a recommendation or an introduction through a third person. And that works really, really well. You know, there's another furniture manufacturer where that reached a contact in Denmark, and the ambassador says, you're the head of purchasing here at the luxury store, and I have a friend who manufactures these really nice products. Are you interested? Even though, you know, they only maybe met twice, but, you know, I have a friend because I had a good connection. I trust him. It seems like he's doing a good thing. And I think that works really well. Another thing that's important is that as a consultant, I don't talk to these people with the prime aim of selling something. So I go in there as a consultant, as a value chains expert, and I'm trying to understand what is best for the client. What is it? What is the problem that we need to solve? And therefore, it's really important to understand what the mindset of the people is. Where do they stand? Advisory and external view, consulting, advisory, and implementation ability, where they can recommend, they can audit the company as to what the infrastructure is, and they will be able to make recommendations and building again the relationship slowly. It's companies in northern part of Europe we're quite impatient, I think. Sometimes we think that we made the connection, and also when is the order coming in? But it doesn't happen that way. The order may come in a year, or it may come in 18 months, or the company may recommend you further to some other company. So, and I think that's a mind shift that needs to happen also among the entrepreneurs and the owners and the managers of the companies in the Baltics or also in the Nordics. We shouldn't be so impatient. Build the relationships, but also start developing new markets, not when things go bad, but do that regularly all the time. And it's nice to keep in touch with people, you know, remember people over Christmas. I think appreciating the human contact and nurturing the relationship is really key.
The key is to better understand what are the problems you can go and solve. And your mindset has to be that you have to be curious about people, about the customer, like trying to understand what it is to be in their shoes. The easiest path, what you have found in how to find the right people to talk to and have your curious mindset. Or I recommend also Matt Lerner, Growth Levers. It's a shorter book, and it gives pretty much like 80% of the good stuff, but you can get it faster. How to have these curious mindset interviews. That what we found is that the best way is to use your existing networks and references. It's when you finally find people who have a pain which you can target, and then this second part is like having a patience, like understanding that building trust, and that the chances that you knock on a random door, they exactly have the exact same problem, what you can nail to solve. And you can build a trust enough that they are willing to take the small risk and buy it from you instead of anybody else on the market whom they might know better or longer. And I think that was very good advice at starting to build markets when times are not tough, when you don't need the extra money, when you don't need the extra demand. That this is the right time to start to build the market. Now we are in kind of economic downturn situation, so for most guys it's probably too late, that you are between a rock and a hard place, that you have to find new sales fast, or you have to start firing people from your end, so that there's no luxury in kind of waiting. So what's your recommendation? What other tools companies can use in order to expand the sales, open up new markets?
Yeah, so well, we discussed these the two aspects. Then there are two others that I think are very, very important. The one is, we talked about it a little bit earlier as well, is the business processes and business model innovation. And what I mean by that is by primarily, giving a new context to your business and to the value add and the value offering. So understanding really how has the situation changed. So, for example, we spoke about the housing industry. So it's all about prefabrication, and in Germany, government institutions are moving towards prefabricated components in the construction. So less of offering a certain type of modular houses, but now offering a different type of elements. And also from a business model point of view, maybe offering that to the public sector through tenders, and finding collaboration partners of offering that in alliances. So that's the business processes have become more complex, taking time to take a fresh look at the business environment and understanding how it has changed and how I need to change with my offering, with my activities as well. So, when factories that are selling commodities is that, I hire an agent, and when you bring the deal, it's 2.5%, and then that's it. But that you don't bring in new business necessarily in a changed, strategically recontextualizing situation. You're giving new context. You kind of distributing the cards again. It's a new game, and companies need to take time and resources to do that. It doesn't happen on its own. So the team has to change, and the processes need to change, how communication is organized within the firm. And that is closely related to the final point that I want to make here. And that's certification and norms. And what I mean by certification and norms is that sometimes it's quite common in this region for companies to be working with clients in export markets, and they start certifying their business procedures and products only when the client demands a certificate. But it should actually be our duty to understand the new context. So what are the requirements that are valid in the destination market, and what does my product need to correspond to? So I also work quite closely with a certifying body in Germany, and what the certifying bodies do is they come into the organization and they actually help you define the business processes, and they help you write things down, and they ask questions, and they've kind of force you, but in a kind way, to find answers to these questions. There's a myth in the market that certification and norms and conformity needs to be excessively expensive, and that's not necessarily the case. And there are many ways to certify the business processes and products, but that are not as a burden to the company, and they're rather a bonus to the company, because the auditing engineer comes in and helps you grow and be more mature, more fit for the market. So it's the business processes, adjusting the processes to the new market, to the new context, and being certified, offering a product that conforms to the norms. And we only get to enter into the international value chain when our product corresponds to the same norms that the client's product correspond to. So actually, a client cannot buy from us if we're not certified, because he needs to ensure to his clients that whatever he buys in corresponds to the same certification. So the certification also happens across the value chain. And I think that it's not about such a easy and a quick and low-hanging fruit. It's about building relationships in these value chains. And not all the organizations have been successful in transforming. There's quite a bit of this short-term thinking still when we talk about ESG. So what I mean by social and governance part is that the way companies purchase things in new value chains has changed. So our ability to sell, or our process of selling, also needs to change. The cold calls that used to happen before don't usually work. I was invited to speak in a seminar last week, and we had a conversation with an IT company, and they said, so how do you gain access to these organizations? They don't answer to my emails, and you can't ring them up because they don't take your calls. And that's exactly what I said, is that there needs to be a different, more clever way of approaching these people, and people still attend events and exchange ideas. But then we also gain the ability to network. It's no longer sending 100 emails and getting them something back, even though, that may give you 1% replies as well. But in general, the method of mechanism of communication and business processes has become more complex.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I think that for me goes nicely together with Matt Mohari. He has a good book about the great CEO within. And in order to scale your company, you have to accept that from 20 people up, one day per week, your people are going to spend on documents and communication. And if you don't accept this, that this is the necessary evil of scaling your company, you're going to lose. Then you can scale. And I think that's what's missing, that people don't want to accept it, that bureaucracy is bad, that it slows me down, it's evil. But in order to scale, you have to learn how to manage the balance. With startups I worked with, they found that these online webinars, work pretty good at getting new contacts. But as you said, that the guys who don't respond to your emails and do not pick up your phone calls from unknown numbers, that they still want to grow in their profession. So how do they get the new information? How to create webinars they want to attend? So how to be there, how to do something which stands out and which allows you to get connections.
Just to sum up, maybe from my side as well, so there's no prescription really, but I think being open to growth and transformation is and building the resilience and the mindset. I think that's really key. I think it's really, really important that people maintain the enjoyment and interacting in work. It's really important to keep a balance in life, and you can detect that in every email, in every conversation. I mean, I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and we need to learn to do things we like and the way we like, and be more positive. I think that's a good.
Absolutely. So thank you, Birgit. Thank you all for listening, and stay curious and stay learning.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the show. I am Kalev.
I'm Diana.
Until next time.